Mark in the count. The swing arm now coming back as our countdown continues.
Good afternoon, folks. Happy Sunday and welcome to the Brick Something News. I'm Brick Something, and today I am joined by Bo of Morphonauts and the new combat creatures line that if you backed, you probably know that you've been getting those notifications to update your backer kits and tell this guy what he should send you. So how's it going, Bo? Welcome to the Brick Something channel, man.
Good. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Yeah. Just like you said, we got the backer kit going and getting those surveys out to people so you can start choosing everything you want. We got some cool add-ons. So yeah, go fill out your surveys, or if you didn't have a chance, you can always get in the store, the pre-order store through backer kit and get something there.
Yep. I put in my backer kit for my figures. So I'm excited. I've been hearing people have been reporting back on the channel like, oh yeah, this is what I went with. This is what I went with. Because I did a survey like really early on, like which of the four people were interested in. So yeah, I'm curious, and we'll get more to the combat creatures, but I am curious, just after all was said and done, or as you're seeing it now, what seems to be the more popular of the beasts?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's probably the shark, which is kind of funny because it wasn't one of the originals. Like when I first started creating the combat creatures, I think I actually had, it was always going to be a wolf, always a lion because of the pirate lion with Battle Beast. Like kind of, he was like that inspiration, and I was pretty sure I was going to do a bear. And then I think I actually was going to do like a Black Panther, and I had a really cool design, but then I put it up on my Instagram just as like a survey. I was like, hey, which four figures? And actually the shark, like I threw up a shark randomly because I sell 3D printed figures on my website, and he was one of the kind of originals. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll do a shark just to see if people want that. And yeah, people were like, they thought the panther was cool, but like that they wanted the shark. And then after I went through the Kickstarter, he was even more popular than everyone so far, what I've seen. And like working with a Big Bad Toy Store, I think they had, they showed me their numbers, and I think he's still popular on there. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. He wasn't even going to be part of the first wave, and now he's like the most popular one. So
yeah, and I've wondered about that because I think just as an outsider, because obviously the whole anthropomorphic animal thing is pretty popular right now, and I'm all about it because it's kind of strangely become a huge part of my collection. But we got a lot of mammals, right? I mean, there are a lot of other lines out there with mammals, and that shark. I think there's one other company overseas that's doing something with sharks, but I think people are probably like filling some holes, right? So that's cool. I'm glad that worked out. That's awesome. Well, let's go ahead and sort of jump in, and just so this was the first one Josh Brown wanted to report, right? So right off the bat, he was the first comment, like knowing that you were going to be here, wanted to let y'all know, like I did my backer kit last week.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.
Let's say hello. Go for it.
Yeah, we're hoping to. It's still like based on what Kickstarter said. We're still hoping for July to get everyone their figures. So we'll see. I've been working with the factory, and they're already hopping on the tooling. So hopefully they can get a good chunk of that done before the Chinese New Year, because their whole country shuts down, and that usually just messes everything up. But this factory has been so awesome to work with. So yeah, hopefully, like I just got a message from someone today. They're like, hey, just wondered when you think these will be fulfilled by. Like, you think 12 months? And I was like, dang, is that usually how long it takes? I mean, I have done another wave of figures, and it sometimes can drag out, but I'm really hoping for the summer. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, fingers crossed. The reality is, as you've said already and alluded to, so many things can happen between now and
Yeah.
sort of final delivery to you and then getting it out to people. So
Mm-hmm.
again, fingers crossed. I know I'm waiting on figures that are about to drop that I've been waiting for about 2 years through Mythic Legions. And I will
Mm-hmm.
tell you, every single time I'm waiting for figures for a while, especially like ones that I've really thought about. Do I want this? Do I want this? And I
Yeah.
pre-order it and just wait. Every time I get them, it's like, no, it's worth the wait, if it's done right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
good luck to you. And I'm hoping that it happens fast, but I'm patient and I'm sure folks
Yeah.
can be patient.
Yeah, for sure.
It is
They'll
the
be
internet.
worth it. As I've gotten just a 3D printed out to people, they're like, man, this is like almost like just a 3D printed version. This is like, they're like, this is better than some actual figures. So like hearing that from some of the like the big guys, the big toy reviewers, I'm like, okay, we've got something here. Like they like that. So once we get a factory made figure, it's totally gonna be worth it. So
That's
I'm
beautiful.
stoked. Yeah.
I can't wait. And we're definitely going to talk a lot more about Morphonauts and combat creatures and a little bit of some of the past stuff. Let's go and say hello to everyone else. Hey, Josh, we got Star in there. How's it going? Thanos is going to help out with the links if he can. Let me know if you can't. You might have already said, but I missed it. But I'll if not a problem. Nolan, good to see you. Who else? We got Carol. Thank you guys. It's so awesome to sort of see the regular folks hanging out. Makes my Sunday. Fatred Foo, good to see you. Shiny Plastic People, the news is on. I was just watching him earlier, along with Highly Articulated. How's it going, man? Good to see you.
So
Let's see. I believe you got to go on Highly Articulated and kind of talk about the lab. I might have been mistaken, but I don't know. Sorry.
man,
I know you were there a lot. You were traveling around a lot. Ray Paz, thank you. Appreciate that, Ray. Yes, hit like, hit subscribe if you're new here. Check it out. We got the Collecting Brothers, John and Josh. How's it going? Let's see. See this whole thing, man. This is like there's an art, there's a skill to it. Joe Gonzalez, what's up? How are you doing? And maybe we are towards the end. No, we got Trevor. How's it going? Great to see you. Always good to see you here. Caveman Movies and More. That's a new name to me, but here in the chat, but I've seen you elsewhere. So thank you so much for coming through. Zach Kinsella, artist extraordinaire. Allison Troy, whose stream was canceled today due to snow. Got some weather today. All right. I think that's the crew for now. Let's go ahead and get into this. At the bottom, you'll see this sort of thing coming across there, reminding you that at bit.ly/Brick Something News, capital B, capital S, capital News, is where you'll find the links to this thing after the live stream. There's a QR code there for the folks on the replay. But let's go ahead and get into it. Let's move us over here and let's take a look at the first stuff. All right. So first section, sort of what, needless ephemera we saw. Let's talk about what was seen. For me right now, I'm huge into Motu, especially in this sort of 2.0 toy life crisis, new age of collecting of mine. It really kicked off with like Masterverse, technically Origins, but there was just something about Masterverse. I was like, okay, I think I'm going to commit to trying to collect these as well as some other things that I'd been eyeing, like Mythic Legions. But a lot of it had to do with this show. This is the follow-up to that first series by Kevin Smith and company, Revelation. This is the Revolution sort of sequel. Is this at all on your radar, or is Masters of the Universe at all something
it's funny. Right before the show, I was step back to yesterday. I was like moving a bed around and I threw on a podcast and I was listening to Jay Retro, and he was talking about this. Like he was going, and I was just kind of listening and just moving, cleaning and stuff. And then I was like, I didn't even know that the sequel was coming out like right now. So anyway, he was talking all about it and saying how like he's excited for it. And so right before this show, I just put on the first episode and I was like, oh, I don't really remember everything. I know there's tons of controversy. And so I was like, okay, let me just go back and rewatch it. So I only got like 10 minutes into it, but but and
Oh,
yeah,
good.
like that. Yeah, so I'll go back and rewatch it. But yeah, with combat creatures, there's kind of a lot of similarities just with like the feel. They're all like these ripped, huge, muscular beasts
Yeah.
and crazy characters. Like Master of the Universe has, every single character is just something off the wall. So it definitely is the same kind of vibe. So I'll watch the new one, and I'm gonna go back and watch the first one too.
Well, you said it. There's the same kind of vibe because, like I said, coming back into like committing to collecting action figures again. It started with Masterverse, and there's sort of a genre thing, at least in my head, that I'm collecting, and a lot of it is kind of the barbarian / science fiction kind of thing, and
Yeah,
which
like
is
sword and
truly,
sorcery.
yeah, with weapons and ships. So
Yeah.
combat creatures, right? Walking
Mhm.
around animals, the fantasy of
Mhm.
that with like all the high tech armor and
Yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
I think they did such a great job, and there's like this whole subplot of like the rise of technology versus magic in
Mhm.
this one, as you
Yeah.
kind of see on the screen.
Yeah.
And there's other folks here in the chat that clearly are all about it. Josh is like really excited for this. Hopefully this means we get a Massiverse Rio Blast. Absolutely. That's one of the characters here that, like, again, Motu was like that guy right there that showed up. He's a cowboy,
Mhm.
basically, with
Mhm.
like guns coming out of his chest. Motu was like, you could do anything in Masters of the
Mhm.
Universe, really. It was like
Mhm.
you had a concept. Imagine like folks like yourself, a team of folks in
Yeah.
Mattel back in the day. They're like, what if we did a sea creature
Mhm.
guy or a
Yeah.
hairy guy or a
Yep.
cowboy, right? And it was
Mhm.
just like, sure,
And
let's
yeah,
sell toys.
and the names were just they were just kind of off the wall too. And it
Yeah,
was like, yeah, like many,
yeah,
many, whatever, many faces. It's just
many
like,
faces.
yeah, many
And really,
arms.
it's
Yeah.
like the main hero's name,
He-Man.
He-Man.
Or,
I mean, come
yeah, yeah,
on. It's
yeah.
like no conceit, right? Let's just go, no pretense. Let's just get into it.
Mhm.
Let's have some
Mhm.
fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely a lot of Masters of the Universe folks in here. A lot of folks trying to rewatch Revelation, which I
Mhm.
just did again. I mean, I watch it.
Nice.
I watched it a couple times since, but I just did that last week.
Nice. How
Um,
was it this time? Did you pick
oh,
up anything that you missed, or you get you more excited, or?
yes, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because I know like it's there are folks who haven't watched it, but there are some lore things, like real like deep lore around like the deities and gods and
Mhm.
goddesses of the
Mhm.
world
Okay.
that come into play in this. Whoa, lost him. There you go. That come into play into this trailer. So it seems like that's going to come and be a big deal.
Mhm.
Sorry, it's going to be a big deal in this one. So when I watched it again, I was kind of like paying attention to what some of those scenes were about. And
Mm.
anyway, I'm geeking and
Cool.
excited.
Nice.
We got Eldor here. Good to see you, sir. Straight out of Eternia himself.
Mhm.
Okay. The big thing though, and again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but the original vintage toys kind of hinted at this character named Keldor that somehow had some connection to Skeletor. I'll leave it at that. And
Okay.
then when the new cartoon came around the 2000s, they called it 2000X series by Mike Young Productions. They really dug deep into that and built this whole backstory, picking up on those threads. And this
Okay.
is that character. He has, like I said,
Mhm.
some connection to Skeletor in past iterations. Face popped up in the trailer. And so a lot
Mhm.
of us, and you probably heard Mega J talking about it, like, what does this
Mhm.
mean? Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I love it. Right here, you see sort of like that's Keldor here in the middle, and with his dope gray streak, you've got
Mhm.
Hordak, or this new version's take on Hordak, which is totally monstrous and buff looking, voiced
Mhm.
by Keith David,
Yeah.
Gargoyles of Gargoyles,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
this character, which is a little bit of a question mark. Is it Scareglow? Who knows?
Mm.
But
Yeah.
to me, this is super exciting, man. Like, and we were on Ostradamus Toys last night, just chatting it up, and we could spend a good chunk just like talking about the implications of this. All that
Nice.
to say,
Yeah.
like, man, good times for Masters of the Universe fans, and in my opinion, good times for toy fans. Like, and
Mhm.
you mentioned the controversy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know how much you remember that, but that stuff, like, this came up last night. Just, it's such a bummer to see folks who may not like really truly aren't interested in even watching the show, but like even before the show came out, already kind of put a negative spin on things.
Yeah.
And it's so odd because, you know, here you have Netflix and Kevin Smith and Ted Biaselli and the whole crew trying to like bring this back, mainly because it's like a thing that they loved. And so, you know, for me and a lot of the fans, we're just excited to have this back in the 21st century, right? And I'm hoping we can do a little bit more celebrating the fact that it's still here rather than sort of trying to tear it down. So
yeah,
that's my wish for 2024.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah.
Yeah, if you check it out, let me know. I'm just curious. Just drop me a line on IG. I'm just curious what you thought of it. No, you know, no pressure. It's not for everyone, but if you think of like you yourself being a toy maker, I don't know. Do you have much of a story for combat creatures in your head?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I pulled like everything, like just inspirations from growing up in the 80s. And I feel like I was born like the perfect year for 80s toys and cartoons. I was born in 81. And so I grew up like out of the womb watching like G.I. Joe and Star Wars and then growing up a little bit Ninja Turtles and Transformers. And so I was there for everything. I think just that molded my personality and my creativity, just from
100%
being super little and just always making my own stuff back then. And it's just kind of grew into what I make today. So I bet I've even got stuff in my story that's like comes from other things that I had no idea. It just was like implanted in me when I was like 4 or whatever watching stuff. But it's all like it's like a mix of like sci-fi and sword and sorcery and just everything kind of molded into one stuff I love. So, and there's a little bit of the story if you go to the Kickstarter page, like the video. I mean, I have like 2 minutes to basically share everything, and that just gives you like the tip of the iceberg of kind of what's going on, where like each animal comes from their own like planet, or like each planet so you got like felines or whatever and canines, they all come from like their own planet and kind of come together in one big world to basically save the universe and protect the universe. So
yeah, man, that's fantastic. Like, I don't know, like it's one thing you're like, I'm gonna make toys, but now you know you're also a storyteller, right? And I don't know, that's exciting. Like somewhere out there is going to be this giant nerd who's going to be interested in combat creatures, and 30 years from now is going to be like, man, can we get the next combat creatures modern line? And I'm excited for you. I'm excited for Masters of the Universe. Folks are already, you know, like are naming. Yeah, like there's certain channels out there already talking crap about the thing that hasn't even come out. So yeah, it's a trip, man. It's like all that negativity all around, like something that is like meant to be like joyous and fun. But
well, I think it's probably just that fallout of like it happening like on so many different things like Star Wars and Marvel, like, so it's just kind of like the popular topic and it's like, oh, here we go again or whatever, like, so it's before you give it a chance, it's like you got to give it a few episodes to even see if it's worth your time.
Sure.
But then people crap on it.
And then on top of that, it's like, let's say you're not into it, you know, like I always just sort of wonder, like, where's the value in kind of like spending time on the internet tearing it down while other people are enjoying it? And and again, you know, we should all be critical. I'm fine for that, but I don't know. I just think about, again, what was that sort of dark age when there was no Masters of the Universe, anything, right? When was that dark age when there was no G.I. Joe Classified and it was just sort of like real niche, right? And now it's like everywhere again. So anyway, I don't know. It's a trip. Like here's Caveman saying, very sad with all the Kevin Smith haters, which is sad because at the end of the day, he's one of us and started out as a fan, 100%. What exactly is wrong with that? Just saying. And I'm just saying that with you too, Caveman. Ray is saying, I think in today's world, you need to try and have mass appeal. It's hard, though, to include all those genres into one story. I look forward to seeing your comic or book. Absolutely. And I wonder if you need, I don't know that you necessarily need to hit it all. I just think to me, it's like story is key, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
start with the basics of a story, a compelling story, and pull us in, give us, characters that we can relate to, have fun, a little bit of fantasy to escape maybe reality.
Exactly. Yeah.
And sell those
That's
toys.
key. Yeah. Yeah, but you definitely need a story or something to, like, you can create the coolest looking character, but if like, if there's nothing to like bring you in and be like, why is it so cool? Like you'll probably sell some of that toy, but you'd probably
Yep.
sell so much more if you actually have a cool story and like, why is he so cool?
Yep. Yeah, and again, without new content. So people are trying to tear things down before it even shows up, and people like mass audience even have a chance to watch it. It's important to realize what Joe's saying here. It's like without new content, the toys will probably go away, and so that's kind of where I'm at. Again, I'm not like, I know the word shill gets thrown around, but no, I'm just trying to be supportive, as Joe says, and like if it's not your thing, then sort of step aside. Because I don't know, I kind of don't want Masters of the Universe necessarily to go away, and I want it to have a chance at sort of a new life.
Yeah.
I don't want to go on any channels because I don't want it ruined before I see this new season. I watched the original, and I'm wondering why they didn't put out some of these characters, specifically some of the troop builders, in toy form, 100%. And yes, I am, Chris. Okay, moving on. Let's see what else we saw. Let's talk. Oh, are you at all familiar with a film? I don't remember the year now. It was pre-2019, I want to say.
Yeah.
Kubo and
Kubo. Yeah. I didn't see it, but was it stop motion?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah,
okay.
claymation, stop motion. I don't know how much clay was actually used by Leica.
Leica. So I don't think this is where I never saw it, but I probably a lot of my old coworkers worked on that because I worked before I did actual toys, I worked as a 3D artist in movies and video games and all that. It's all kind of the same thing as the 3D modeler. And so I even worked on another smaller movie where I did the facial replacement. So what you do is you model a face and then you just make a billion other faces, like all the different vowels
and
and
emotions and
and
movement.
so anyway, I've worked on stuff very similar to that, and then I'm sure some of my old colleagues were actually on that, and I know they are hyping it up as they are working on it, but then I never I never ended up seeing it, so I do need to go back and see that.
It is pretty cool, man. Just like from even from an art perspective, as someone who's worked on these things, it's a trip. And yeah, I never really thought about what you're saying as far as the mouth movement. I know. Do you happen to know if that's how Leica does it? I never really thought about like, do they do clay figures and then CG faces for
No, it's crazy. So what they do is they have usually, I mean, there's every character is probably different, but the base style, what they do is they have like an armature. It's like a fully metal mechanical body, and it's
underneath,
awesome.
right?
Yeah, and if you looked at it's cool.
It's like an action figure on steroids.
Yeah, exactly. And then they have like the wardrobe department, and they straight up make a wardrobe, like cloth and everything. So they probably have a couple like just a couple outfits or a couple bodies just in case one starts getting messed up or if they need multiple shots. But then the faces, like just I remember just to make like an F, like the F phonetic sound, I think I had to make 4 different, like, because it has versions. To go from different impressions to make that. So you start out just with a still face, and then it like slowly, and then like have the teeth overbite it, and then they have like for a whole movie for one character, you probably have like 150 different faces that are swappable, and so they have a seam along the eyes and the nose. And so you can take off like the eyebrows if you still want
a faceplate
if you want to animate the face. And then they have like these mechanical eyes and eyelids that like
that's wild.
It's a trip. And so just every little scene,
taking hours to do minutes, right?
And they have like they're magnetic, and you just pull it off. And so, but the animators are insane. They can just go super quick, and they're so skilled at it that they're just.
I like
cruising.
this.
But
As you're
Yeah.
talking, it's reminding me of like your work, the notion of
Hmm.
like interchangeable parts and
Yeah.
magnets and it's
Hmm.
true. Like, you know, I kind of made a joke of it, but underneath the armatures, essentially, like you're working on something that's articulated and can move that you can build on top of, right? I
Hmm.
mean, they're effectively like figure
Oh yeah.
skeletons that you
Yeah.
can move with the joints, and everything needs to be strong enough, so the engineering needs to be there to hold poses and like take the
Hmm. Yeah.
so there's a connection there
Hmm.
between, I guess, your old work. Or are you
Hmm.
still working in like films and video games, or
No, it's pretty. I've kind of just jumped on doing my own thing with like toy making. I haven't got really any contract work for that lately, probably just because I haven't really gone seeking for it or reached out to anyone to do
gotcha?
it.
Yep.
So yeah.
We've got a couple of Leica fans in here. I was excited to see this. Is basically Super 7. I kind of buried the lead. Super 7 is doing these figures, and they've done these large scale figures. That's like you see in the photo there.
Hmm.
Man, I live here in South San Francisco, like hop, skip, and a jump from their San Francisco store. And one of my favorite things to look at are they have like some Peanuts. They
Hmm.
have some Disney characters this big. There's like a Rugrats Reptar, and they're just, I
Oh,
mean, it's so cool. I can't
yeah,
get them, but I go there to just kind of look at them. And
that's cool.
just based on what they've done, of course, you're working a much larger scale. They look
Hmm.
gorgeous. It
Yeah,
looks
they're
like
awesome.
this one is mostly plastic, which, you know,
Hmm.
again, they just have to sculpt and get it there. Maybe that
Hmm.
sash is soft goods, but the soft goods on the Disney
Hmm.
ones are like just impeccable. Because I think
Yeah,
at that point, you're really designing for like a small child,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
this
That's
is
awesome.
cool. It's such
Hmm.
like an obscure thing, and that's what I love. That's the era of Super 7 that I kind of came up in. They're just kind of like picking up relatively obscure licenses and properties, or doing their own thing that um, you know, before they were doing the kind of like a mass market Ninja Turtles, Masters of the Universe, etc.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to see them do this, and I hope they are able to connect with like the fan base
Hmm.
that does this. We have a question for you so far, and I don't want to get too far without answering it. So,
Okay.
Caveman, where'd you go, Caveman? Oh, I'm so bad at this whole starring things. There was a question about software. Alias. So, do you use Alias software? I've used similar software for years for modeling, I'm assuming, and animation.
Yeah, no, Alias, I used to use something, and I think Alias did Maya back in the day, and then it was Autodesk bought it. I think someone else bought it before them, but I haven't touched. I used Maya and all that for when I was doing movies and stuff, but I actually haven't touched that in like 6 years because I only do ZBrush now, and which is like
Mm-hmm.
sculpting. It's like digital clay, and it's the coolest software. I have like got in there every single day for like 15 years, and it's like my therapy. I just get in there and just start sculpting and making new things or whatever. So yeah, ZBrush is where it's at if you want to make like toys.
I've watched some videos of it. It's amazing. But you know, like
Hmm.
I'm I think a little bit older, about maybe from what you said earlier, about 5 years older than you, I
Okay.
think. So I was
Hmm.
in college from like 94, 98, and
Okay.
just messing with software. And this was like polygons, start with a
Yeah.
sphere, you know, and
Yeah.
like build
Hmm.
up or subtract. But like
Yeah.
now when you can kind of just do strokes, like you're
Oh,
sculpting material, is
it's awesome. Yeah.
amazing to me.
Hmm.
That's cool, man. That's great.
Yeah.
And that's what you used for I guess the initial designs of the Morphonauts.
Yeah.
Is that
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Let's. Yeah. I use pretty much ZBrush just for everything. Yeah, from
Okay?
start to finish. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move on. Hey, Terrence, thanks for joining. Always great to see you. Next up from Super Seven's Leica. Hey, who are these guys? So you shared a couple of things. I was just sort of like, hey, man, what would you want to talk about? And I know you've collaborated with a bunch of folks, including Invincible Toys over here,
Hmm.
Landon Stewart.
Hmm.
And this, like what we're seeing here, is specifically your collab on some combat creatures, what
Hmm.
became combat creatures, right? Or I think they were
Yeah.
already combat creatures by this point.
Yeah.
Um, like, yeah, what's the relationship with Landon and Invincible Toys?
Man, as far as like indie goes, like and just good people. Like, you don't find a cooler person than Landon. He's got his own toy line out there, the futuristic combat soldiers, and so he did a Kickstarter, a successful Kickstarter for those, I think last year at some point, and so he's getting ready. Those will be coming out, and
Yep.
then
And we'll take a look
like,
at those after this for sure.
yeah, I don't remember if I reached out to him or he reached out to me, but it was like he's just like been helping me on the Kickstarter. Like, hey, okay, have you thought of this? Have you done that? What about the factory? And anyway, he's just been like every little thing. If I have a question, I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? And even the scale, I was like, man, I kind of think I want to do 4-inch, but I know the popular size right now is like for collectors is 6-inch. And just he's like, no, he's like, if you want to like that for them to be successful, like do bigger. He's like, and then you can always come back and do the smaller. And I was even thinking, I was like, well, should I do a Kickstarter where I've got 4-inch and 6-inch because I could hit a bigger target.
Sure.
But then you have to ask for like double the money to make from the molds and
Right.
anyway, he's like, just go bigger.
More complicated with the factory and everything too.
Yeah, yeah. So and it's stuff like that. And then so I just sent him what I feel like I sent him something else. Anyway, he was just awesome. He's like, hey, if you want me to paint some like for your factory, I'll do that. And so I just sent him a wolf. And so what you're seeing right here is the wolf figure, and I sent him a lion. And so he painted the lion like pirate lion with the white fur and
Yep.
and the blue armor. And then he painted this one like a German Shepherd. I'm like, holy crap! Like I might have to add that to my wave too, just because it turned out so cool looking. So, and yeah, he's just awesome.
That's great. And you mentioned that he's worked on some other things, and I've heard a lot of that kind of talk from like the Savage Crucible folks and Jason over at Spiro Toys with AWOC, just like the how invaluable it is for people to kind of like compare notes and it's people in the similar situation of trying to do a toy line, right? And you want to learn from other people's experiences. And just the fact that like folks are willing to help is great, right? That's the whole like, what is it? The rising tides raise all ships. I know I'm butchering that, but yeah, that's really great that y'all are like have that kind of collaborative spirit and you're getting that insight. And I'm personally glad that you landed on the 6 to 7 inch scale. Because that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, I mean, the 4-inch thing definitely has its fans and it's got a huge market too. Here's Josh Brown on that note saying, because we were linking it to the Motu stuff, the Masterverse in particular, their sort of 7-inch line. And yeah, I was just saying that Morphonauts have the same proportions, might make for some good mashups. Were you at all looking after taking that advice from Landon? Were you like, looking at existing lines and trying to sort of see where you wanted to kind of fit in both scale wise and maybe genre?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, not too much. I kind of like just trusted him that like kind of based on what he did. And I have a few other like, I don't have like a huge collection. Like I don't even know if I would say I'm like a massive collector. I'd say I'm a toy creator because I've like, so I'll go and buy like one of everything but I don't have like a cool looking collection like everyone has. It's like all mine are like on my desk and like with my caliper measuring stuff and like, okay, do I want this to work with that? Or, but at the end of the day, I came up with my own like articulation system and I think one thing he said, yeah, you probably want these to be a little bit bigger than 112 because they're like kind of super soldiers and they're anthropomorphic animals. So he's like, I'd go 6.5 inch. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And so I just looked at a couple other figures. I was like, okay, they're bigger than like some of your GI Joes. They're bigger than Star Wars. That they're a little smaller than some of these other ones. So I feel like they're at a good size. Like I didn't want to go too crazy, like 7-inch, which there's not a big difference between 6.5 and 7, but it's like I was like, I'm gonna stay still a little bit more on the 6.5 inch side.
Yeah, well, and again, like you said, these are I mean they're animals, right? Super soldiers. So it's like you can fit them. They can be larger than the humans or whatever if you need them to be. But yeah, it looks like it's a sweet spot, and I'm excited to have them on my shelf. and I know he, in addition to kind of helping you out, has his own stuff going on. So Invincible Toys, in conjunction with Zika, who we'll talk about in a little bit, was doing two things. There's this fist line, and it's funny because you were contemplating, should I do 4-inch 3.75, and that's actually what they did, right? They had a 3.75, and then they're scaling up to the 112. And this in particular is interesting to me. Just last week, I had Steve and Ken talking from Delta 17. They're about to like launch their 3.75 O-ring kind of like sci-fi-ish military line. And so it's fun to sort of see that there's these other folks kind of like really building out that scale of things, because that scale has its upside, right? Mainly like vehicles and play sets. So it's just cool to kind of see these. I don't know if like, did you guys have much of a back and forth while this was happening, or did you kind of like meet him after all of this was happening? I know I'll just cycle through these while you're talking.
So are you talking about Landon or the Zika?
Oh, well, so did Landon work on the fist along with Zika?
I think it's kind of complicated. And
it's hard for me to parse out too, to make sense of.
Okay, so here's what I think it is. So Landon, he's got his own line, but he's like he's helped me. I think he's taken like a little bit, he's helped more people out more than me. So the fist line, I think, is a guy like in Colombia. I think that's his product, but I think Landon is like the product manager of it, and he's like, he kind of oversees it, but I don't think it's like his designs or his line.
Oh, good.
It could be. I hope I'm not like speaking like out of line for that, but so I think he's like kind of product managing and helping. And so that guy, and what's his name? Let's just say the Fist Company.
Sure.
So he kind of created his world with those characters. And then Zika Toys, he does a lot of like your old school like O-rings. He's did like he'll go and get some cool licenses like the Sectars and stuff like that. And so he wanted to make some O-rings of like just a new line. And so rather than getting like a crazy like a G.I. Joe license, he's like, oh, here's this cool new toy company, maybe we can collaborate a little bit. So he did a Kickstarter that unfortunately wasn't successful, but he did the Fist version of these figures. And so that's kind of where that whole like it's like the whirlwind of like how it all came together, I think. Don't fully quote me on that. But,
that's fine. I wasn't sure myself either. I've seen these and I've been sort of intrigued by the 112 side of things. So here's the Fist link, or the stuff, right? This is the Instagram. And so through some form of collaboration, these are the actual prototypes. I believe these are actually, these are factory samples. Kind of get that sense of like the articulation, and it is always fascinating to me, like even though we have figures, right, and there's plenty of examples out there, folks are always kind of looking to push the state of the art, right, and like finding different ways to do articulation and level of detail and accessories. This thing's got a lot going on this body, right? Anyway, just real cool looking characters.
Yeah, well, I think it's just something new. I think a lot of people, like, I was watching someone's show and they're like, yeah, I bought like 5 different Spider-Men this year. And it's like, how many times are you going to, buy the same character? It's like, okay, like I love collecting, and I want to like, this Spider-Man's cooler than that Spider-Man. But like, when there's so many other like things you could get, it's like, give something else a chance and see if you like that,
I'm with you. I'm with you on the new. Like that's kind of just where I'm at. Even though, like I said, I started with the Masters of the Universe because that was something I was into as a kid, but actually didn't have the toys. So there's still that notion of like it's still newish to me, because I never was like, I had a couple, but it was never my main collection. It was like mainly Star Wars, G.I. Joe. So it was like, okay, well, let me do something new. And then with things like Mythic Legions, it's like brand new out of the minds of the Four Horsemen and Eric Treadaway. It's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
and then they do Cosmic Legions. They've got Figure Obscura. There's like, I still get my nostalgia fix from things like Super 7. But even there, like my favorite figures by them are the Worst line, which is like completely original, off the wall characters. So I'm with you on the just like, here's something new. So did I hear you say that the 3.75 didn't work out?
Yeah, the O-ring, I don't think it was successful.
Got
And
it. Okay.
yeah, so and I think, I'm not sure. I think the Fist, I think they're launching like a Kickstarter, unless I don't know if I missed it somehow, but I thought I heard they're doing it this spring. So
That's what I thought too. And I remember seeing
okay.
the ramp up for it, and I don't know where it landed.
I
So
think they were probably in a similar boat as me, as they are getting ready to, like last summer,
mhm.
and they probably realized, they're probably like, oh, we don't want to do it right before Christmas because we won't like fund. And I was getting that same vibe. For me, I was like, man, should I do it? I'm doing it at the worst possible time. So the fact that mine was successful, I'm like super grateful that everyone like, and just like, wow, like people actually came out and supported it during like the worst time, like during a recession and Christmas. And so the fact that
Yep.
it funded, I'm like, okay, if I would have like waited, it probably would have got more money, but that doesn't matter because like it's funded, we're getting tooling, we're making them, and they're going to be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris is saying I bought way too many Batman and Spider-Man, but like, we love them. We love that
Yeah.
stuff. And we were really deeply programmed to love those things, which is great. But I'm also interested in sort of seeing new things and meeting creators like yourself and Jason and again the Four Horsemen folks, just seeing what they've got. And I love this notion of like military mixed in with that kind of high fantasy orc type stuff. So this is some cool stuff. And there's definitely it's caught attention. Like I know people were looking at that. In addition, they're doing Invincible Toys has the futuristic combat soldiers, and I don't want to short the time, but like we should move, but I like the concept behind this of just sort of, and these are some of their first round of paint samples that they did with Symbiote Studios. So it's like existing warriors or soldiers mixed in with high tech, right? So you have your sort of centurion or Roman soldier.
Yeah.
I love the
He's got
use
like
of this.
yeah, like a cowboy, a samurai, and then
Yep.
just a modern. So yeah, it's definitely a fun like idea. I think it's cool.
This is more of, I guess, like a soldier, very reminiscent of a like a Doom type, Halo type guy, maybe. But yeah, it just hits on those things that again, speaking of the programming, there are just genres and types and tropes that we're aware of. So it's kind of neat to see people jump in. And I'm not. I mean, I love Animal Warriors of the Kingdom. There's very much a trope of fantasy animal type people. I keep thinking Thundercats and Planet of the Apes, but then you create this whole other world around it that's intriguing and stands on its own, and I'm about it. So
yeah, it's not
part of why
the same.
Part of what I was asking earlier is like, were you looking at other lines? So I'm always kind of intrigued to know how these figures. So here's the combat. Futuristic combat soldier next to some Marvel Legends, some Fortnite, other Hasbro figures, classified. Yeah. So again, even if it's just a sort of supplement with, and maybe like, serve as enemies or combatants for your other lines. Here's the actual order page. $35 for a figure. From a tiny company like this totally makes sense to me. And I know, and we all know that the bigger companies are kind of creeping up towards that. There's been this recent topic conversations, been the McFarlane recent wave. But again, anyway, I'll just come back. I'll leave that there. We talked all about that last night. But yeah, here's a brand new indie startup like yourself. Just like, hey, I'm a creative person. I have this idea. I love toys. Here's my toy line. If you're interested, you can go through the backer kit right now to buy in on some of these. It looked like I saw some folks in here that there are folks in the chat right now that are behind some of them. I wasn't sure, sorry, and I might have missed who it was. And but I'm glad to hear that. Let's see. And we saw that. Okay, we'll get yeah, before that, I want to come back to Zika. Say my little
Okay.
piece. Zika.
Yeah.
In addition to working on this stuff, I knew Zika from way back here because they were doing sectars, and they also do things
Yeah.
like this, by the way, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm a sucker for the old Shogun Warriors, so I was happy to
Mm-hmm.
see someone trying to do that. But sectars was one of my like just things that I loved as a kid, the idea of like insect warriors, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
um and so they did this line, and I love these, like as far as sculpt and where they were trying to go with it. I think
Mm-hmm.
these are the best modern sectars
Yeah.
toys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, he did an awesome job. I remember, yeah, when I think it was a Kickstarter when they came out, I was like, yeah, I wanted to make something like that before. That was before I even got into like making action figures, and always wanted like because I was probably more in the 4-inch camp like earlier, and
Hmm.
hasn't been until like recently. But I, as a kid, I always wanted those like a little more articulated, smaller, could work with like GI Joes, have vehicles and all that.
Hmm.
But yeah, and then like the paint color, like it was like spot on. They look exact like just a little smaller version of them. So they're awesome.
And what I liked about these two as a collector, I've got some of my old vintage sectars in the other room, but they took the idea and the original designs and kind of did, like it's 20, I forget when these were, 20, maybe 16 or so.
Hmm.
um they took the modern technology and sort of like, we've all kind of grown and have different sort of aesthetic and leanings, and they worked that into these designs. So this was not how Skeeto looked originally,
Hmm.
but largely still based on that with, more angular kind of take.
Hmm.
Same here. God, this Waspax is like such a, like this, I guess, is what they look like in my mind compared to
Hmm.
the original toy and original sculpt.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will say, and I have to review them because I have a new Prince Dargon from
Mm.
Nacelle.
Okay.
um, some issues with personally with articulation, but
Hmm.
for me, I think there are folks who really just wanted to kind of see sectars continue and
Hmm.
wanted those toys back. It's very
Hmm.
much that. It's like
Yeah.
almost like a true love letter to the original sculpts, maybe with additional points of articulation,
Hmm.
but not a lot. So I get that if you're really chasing like how those toys were, and they're larger, so they would fit like height wise in with some of the bigger figures today. But it's so close to the original that I was like, I appreciate what Zika was doing with these, and
Hmm.
unfortunately, these never flew. They never were able to get the second wave backed and
Yeah.
funded, but they were
Yeah.
looking at um, the bugs,
The
the
vehicle.
mounts,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
it would have been so cool.
Hmm.
Anyway, that's Zika, and I'm glad to hear that like that was kind of in your milieu of people that you're looking at to inspire your indie
Hmm.
toy making journey. And that's where I think you were saying Valiverse. Similarly, you made some comments when we were talking about like the notion of a small company doing military
Hmm.
large scale figures in the landscape while Hasbro and G.I. Joe Classifieds there. Yeah, you want to share that with the
Yeah.
folks?
Yeah, no, I just think it's awesome that like you see these smaller indie toy companies that are like just basically and even finding licenses or whatever. And I didn't know what Action Force, what like the old school Action Force, like I think it was like the UK version of GI Joe back in the 80s, but I'm not sure. And that he was able to get stuff like that, and that, like I just laugh at some of the stuff. Like he got the Sergeant Slaughter to like make a figure of him and got his
Yep.
approval or whatever, and then
Mm-hmm.
the what do you call it? The
The,
iron.
not the Iron Grenadiers, but the are you talking about the Steel Brigade?
Yes, sorry, yeah, the Steel
Mm-hmm.
Brigade.
Yep.
Like the fact he got that name, and like so Hasbro had to change the name of that to like I don't know what they named it, but they had to change the name because he got that license. I just kind of sitting back and like that's kind of cool to see like an indie company go full force in it and make some cool looking figures and just be
Mm-hmm.
able to take on a bigger company like that. It's cool.
These definitely are cool looking figures. I've been able to handle them. They lean a little bit like just genre wise for me. isn't something that kind of fits in. And
Mhm.
but I'm with you on that concept. I've really loved the Bone Collector in particular, but just
Mhm.
like to think that you all, and I say you all because there's a lot of you now. Ken from Toy Connections talks about this idea of the toy renaissance, and in a nutshell, the notion of like the fans as creators, right? We're in this day and age
Mhm.
where we have access to the modeling tools, the computer tools, the design, and
Mhm.
then turn that into rapid prototyping with with
Mhm.
3D printing, and now we can
Mhm.
connect with the factories, with the internet, and all this kind of stuff, right? It's a little more
Yeah.
accessible. And so
It's
now
yeah.
the notion that you can compete essentially
Mhm.
with Hasbro for the attention of the toy fan, it's pretty fascinating. I don't know. I love watching it from the
Yeah.
side.
Yeah. No, it's crazy, and I just I see where it's at like right now. Like, yeah, some artist can go and make their own like toy line, is like crazy, but it makes me wonder what the future is going to be like. Like, um, just being so I make a ton of like commissions and custom designs and stuff like that through
Yep.
3D printing and stuff like that. And since I've worked in movies and I see that they are able to 3D print in full color, not just like
Hmm.
all red or like part of it red and part of it blue, but like skin tones, like we were talking about Leica, like the flushed cheeks and
Yep.
freckles and moles, like they can, but it's those that 3D printing is like it's a little more brittle, so it's like it's not like flexible PVC plastic. But I just wonder what's going to happen, like 5-10 more years, like if you can just 3D
Exactly.
print your own straight up figure, like, and then I mean, who knows with what freaking AI is doing? Like that's gonna just take everyone's jobs. Like, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
crazy thing too. Like, hey, here's this awesome looking type, or just put in some prompt and make a cool figure. Like, who knows? It's getting wild out there.
It is. It is, but and on the optimistic side, as you point out, it's exciting. Who knows where this can go? It's not the
Hmm.
first time that people have had to deal with some sort of like the development of technology that could
Hmm.
potentially make
Yeah.
life complicated. Like
Oh
that's
yeah.
just the nature of the
Just
game.
the internet.
Yeah.
It's just that
It's cool,
all
man.
all
It
this
is
adapting. Yeah.
cool. I am curious, and maybe we can talk about it later. But the name you named Balaverse sort of having to make Hasbro pivot,
Hmm.
knowing that combat creatures skews similar to
Hmm.
an old school brand,
Yeah.
right? Um, and just in general, the whole sci-fi, giant
Hmm.
animals or
Hmm.
whatever. Um, I am. I don't know if you thought much about like how some of those guys, the larger companies in particular, might have to pivot around you, or
Yeah, well,
I
as
don't know.
far as like, yeah, I mean, I've been inspired by everything, and so Battle Beast, I'd say I always described it. It's like a mix of or combat creatures is mixing Battle Beast with like Warhammer 40K, because it's like these sci-fi animals, but then they have their chapters or their army, and so it is like a very different thing, but
Mhm.
it's definitely inspired by that, but I don't know how, like, the owner of the name, the license of Battle Beast, it's not like Hasbro anymore. It's someone else kind of picked that up. So it's like it's kind of all over the place there. And I was like, man, should I when I was creating these when I was first creating these characters, I wasn't like, I want to create Battle Beast. I was like, I want to create some cool sci-fi animals. And I know I was inspired by that, but I was at one point, I was like, oh, should I actually try and reach out and get the license for Battle Beast? I was like, no, at the end of the day, I want to create my own like story, my own lore, my own characters. I don't want to stick to something that's like already written. I just want to do my own thing. And I
That's
guess
great.
similar to like what like Zack Snyder, like good or bad, what he's doing with Rebel Moon. Like he at first was like, oh, I want to make a Star Wars story. He pitched it, they denied
Yep.
it, and then he's like, okay, I'm gonna make my own story, and I don't actually have to like stick to anything. I could just make my own world. So it's like similar in a way like that. I just wanted to like create like everything I want from scratch, and it can have its inspirations from other things,
Yep.
and it just makes it fun.
And again, that brings in something new, right? Something new to the mix that I think just kind of continues the conversation and pushes it forward rather than constantly looking backwards. So I appreciate that. Yeah. let's go to here. You also mentioned Jason and AWOC being another line out there that you've sort of, have you been in conversation with the Spiro folks at all, or just sort of like admiring what they're doing?
Yeah, I feel like throughout Instagram, like I think we've like said like, I don't think we've ever like had a conversation, but we've like commented on each other's stuff, like, oh, that's sweet. And it was back before I was doing like the combat creatures. Like I think I was doing more just like either custom stuff or morphonauts, and I'd just be like, oh, that's pretty sweet, or and he would say comment on my stuff too, or like it or whatever. So but I don't think I've ever met him or had like a full-on conversation with him.
Super nice, super friendly, and I think he would be very excited to meet you. But so yeah, and I think there's like very much some like-minded some mind melding happening between the two of you. And you know and also like incredibly creative, always sort of like thinking about where to go next, rather than looking back. So yeah, I love it. I don't know if you've been able to handle any of these, but this is like easily one of my favorite lines right now, especially in terms of the way they move for a domestically produced figure. And so, I mean, if for what it's worth, I love the way these move. If you're taking a look at them as you're kind of building yours, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, no, they're I've got some. Yeah, they're definitely like a cool looking figure. I actually have. I think I on his 4-inch line. I got some of his stuff back then.
Oh yeah, these guys.
So, so he's definitely like up the game with that, and I'm sure he's like reaped the benefits of scaling it up and just taking the articulation up and adding more detail. But they're definitely like super cool.
If you get the chance, definitely reach out. But also, if you haven't yet seen their comics, it's something that Highly Articulated and I do. We do a show called AWOC Talk, and kind of like talking about the comics, just storytelling and the art. Utama Prasta, who does the art, just some really cool stuff. As you're thinking about it, if you're curious for what it's worth, like this is a new line supporting a new comic, supporting a toy line that, at least speaking for myself and the folks who join us to look at AWOC Talk, that people do love. So if you're curious to kind of see what something like that might look like, check it out.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to.
I was just gonna say, I remember hearing that he was doing a comic, but holy crap, he's got like tons. Like that's something I definitely would love to make combat creatures into a comic.
Yeah, so he's got 4 issues out. There's a lot of us waiting for issue number 5, but so Spiro Toys and Spiro Studio is now going to fully self-publish. They weren't sure if they were going to look for a publisher, but they're self-publishing and getting it distributed through Diamond, and so it'll be in comic book stores as well, and shops as well. Diamond already carries and distributes the AWOC figures because they really like them so much, and so you know, I can't recommend enough that you check in with him. I just think really cool dude, just really good guy. And, you know, to circle back real quick to the Valaverse thing, you know, always opinions. I love it. Ray Paz is saying, I mean, I wouldn't go too far into the Valaverse strategy. They are too aggressive at poop talking. Hasbro, now Hasbro's flooding Joe's. And I'm wondering how that's hurting Valaverse. Sometimes it's best to be silent, just my observations and opinions. You know, I've seen that, and I've observed that. We all have, I think, and there's definitely aggressive is probably the word, but you know, we'll see. And I like circling back to that because I think Jason is kind of the opposite of that. It's a little bit more of the like, I'm just excited and positive about what we're doing, and I want to talk to people, and like, you know, he's not going after necessarily like there's no need. He's like, I don't think he feels a need to go bash the Thundercats line, for example.
I guess I was as you were saying that, I was like, well, I was trying to think of who his like competitor would be, and I guess that'd probably be the biggest one.
But it's anyway, like the competition at the end of the day, these are toys, and you know, of course the market can only sustain so much, but the existing market. If there's a way, man, if we can get more people into toys, like meaning not just the 40-year-old, 30-year-old folks who have been doing it for decades, but like a line that I think what excites me the most about AWOC is that it's the storytelling, the designs, I think could be very appealing to a younger set that might hang on to this as their thing. And I think the same of combat creatures, right? I think there's a story there that like they're fun looking, but also cool looking. You know, there's the edge with the like. So I don't know. Anyways, that's my last pitch. Reach out to Jason. I'll tell him reach out to like they're cool folks. And here's Highly Articulated reporting that issue 5 is done. I believe the release originally was March, so we'll see, because I think they were trying to coincide it with something that's happening with a toy line, a second Kickstarter.
Oh, sweet.
Highly Articulated is always dropping that insider stuff because he gets to see all of that. Anyway, that's Spiro. Folks here on the channel know a lot about AWOC because I can't shut up about it.
That's cool.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. I don't know how much you follow sort of like Mythic Legions at all and that sort of side of the toy world.
I don't. I mean, I see their stuff, but I feel like I've tried to go and buy them, and for whatever reason, they're either like sold out or whatever. Like, I probably just need to go to the, I don't know, different place. But every time I try to look for them, I'm like, it's like sold out or whatever. So is that a common thing, or is it like, do you have to hit the perfect window, or?
They totally have created their own sort of like model for selling stuff. So you're absolutely right to experience that, to be like, wait a second, they're doing a direct pre-order, but BBTS has some older and other retailers have older figures. Some of them are, out of stock or whatever, but some are in stock. And then they also have pre-orders. And then at the same time, the secondary market is like wild. That could be a whole other conversation, but the short version is like right now, today, ending at midnight. Oh man.
You're like, I gotta, excuse me, I gotta go place an order.
So you go to Store Horseman and they have a direct pre-order for something that is like going to be coming down maybe a year or so later. But also at the same time, in less than a month, I'm expecting figures that I ordered a while back. So it kind of works that way because, with a Kickstarter, like you need the funds in, right, to produce these things.
Yeah, for sure.
But they've built this model to the point where their massive fan base kind of like knows how that works. Yeah. And it's a really like warm and friendly fan base. So they're more than willing to help you navigate it. But anyway, the nice thing about it is the sort of embracing of the fans who are, again, creative and making 3D parts. And this is Dwarf Lord Toy Design is one of the many places that does custom parts to work with Legions figures, because those figures, like what you're doing, are very much modular. So you can, have a parts library and do things. Nice. So there are sort of rules that they set up that you might consider for like what they ask the community not to produce, like certain types of pieces or whatever, like particularly articulated parts, but snap-on armor and heads are like good to go. So this is, and you'll get people who have like their loves, like I love dwarves. So they're like, they make custom dwarf pieces. So this is just one of them that recently announced like some new parts are coming. And I don't know, I'm also just really intrigued by art. I'm very much a visually driven person. So I'm intrigued by like their concepts, which aren't necessarily the kinds of things you might see from what the Four Horsemen have actually done. Like I've never seen a Four Horsemen dwarf with like a cowboy looking hat, but like, that's actually kind of cool. Yeah. And then you sort of see, folks like yourselves, like working with the software, just creating the parts and doing the research to figure out like what would actually work on a Legions figure. So, just sort of sharing that.
No, I'm glad you told me about that. I actually had no idea that like aspect of it. Like I said, I just like, oh, those look cool. Go on their website. Oh, it's out of stock. And then I don't like research and dig in, but yeah, I probably could have been making tons of commissions for the past couple of years doing those, but
no, whatever. You really could. And I've reached out to my friends who sound like I have a similar background. I have a couple of friends who were like working at ILM here locally, and then and some folks at at EA doing
Mhm.
video games, who like some of them are no longer there or always kind of looking for things. I was like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm kind of into this Mythic Legions thing. You should check this out. And
Mhm.
that's exactly like, wait a second, like people
Yeah.
are, like people are buying these parts. I was like, yeah, man. So a couple of them are like looking to do, they thought exactly what you did. It's like, oh man, I could have been making
Yeah.
commission. But yeah, no, and you can see like people are rabid, and you can do some really great, like just really cool things to push the line. I
Mhm.
love it, and that shield is amazing. Some of the armor on this stuff.
Mhm.
Anyway, I'm
That's
just
cool.
always intrigued by what people are doing, and there's like a
Yeah.
whole, I call it a cottage industry of
Nice.
surrounding Mythic Legions. Because yeah, well, anyway,
That's cool.
definitely worth looking at, especially since I know your line and the way you've been
Mhm.
thinking about with the whole like mix and matching pieces and the
Mhm.
modularity. I think you might
Yeah.
find this interesting. So that's Dwarf Lord toy design. A similar thing, not necessarily for Legions, but these are more parts for like Hasbro figures. So
Mhm.
just this is Don Manart, who I think had some connection to
Yeah, I
Invincible
think
Toys,
okay,
right?
now that you said that, I think
Mm-hmm.
Fist is his line. Like
Okay, there you go.
the name didn't ring a bell. I think. I don't want to like
I know.
he's going to be like,
That's
"No,
okay.
that's not mine."
That's why I put news in the acronym. Like, no, guys, it's not actual news. It's
Yeah.
needless ephemeral. No, it's fine. Yeah, and
Mhm.
that's part of this whole community. It's just like exchanging information. So
Yeah.
I hear you on that. Clearly a super talented sculptor
Mhm.
who has the same nerd roots, right? So like
Mhm.
doing parts here, if you can see on the right, you join the Patreon and then you get access to these things like a Vietnam Tommy or Storm Shadow, right?
Nice.
You can create those characters from the comics. We've got some. What else we got here? Red X, aka Red Hood, right? There's
Yeah.
some Rebel Moon stuff going on in here. There's a what is Lara Croft in here? So I just want to share that for folks. If this is your thing, my brother's a big fan of both like Hasbro figs and is now getting into Mythic Legions, and I'm seeing like his custom work, and I know he's always sort of looking for these parts. So like have
Mhm.
at it and support these folks who are doing it, and like have fun with your hobby. And like, because to me, speaking of the sort of like Valaverse pushing Hasbro or what have you,
Mhm.
to me, when the fans are like, being artisans and pushing out like, hey, here's a custom figure that I want. I've wanted a Tommy, I've wanted a Lara Croft figure. I've wanted better He-Man heads or better Superman heads or whatever it is. And I'm making
Mhm.
those, and people are putting those out on Instagram. They're getting a lot of attention.
Mhm.
My hope is that the folks at Mattel and Hasbro see this stuff and like
Mhm.
see that there's at least part of the fan base who are like
Mhm.
wanting to see more
Yeah.
in terms of a particular quality or type of
Mhm.
character.
Yeah. Exactly. So they'll up their quality for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Totally.
I dig it. I dig it. All right, moving on. Okay.
Mhm.
Curious, does this ring any bells for you?
Wait, is that Chuck E. Cheese or Showbiz Pizza or what, like is that one of those?
Yes, and
Okay.
I appreciate that you caught that. You both said Chuck E. Cheese and Showbiz, because so
Okay.
Showbiz was a competitor of Chuck E. Cheese, and then
Okay.
eventually Chuck E. Cheese bought a bunch of the Showbiz. So this
Okay.
was an actual Showbiz character from
That's
and
why,
their
yeah.
band. This was their band,
Uh,
the Rock of Fire
okay.
Explosion.
I remember that.
Um,
Yeah, we had one where I lived, and then yeah, the Chuck E. Cheese took over or whatever. So.
Same here in Lakewood, California. I was a big fan of that. Had 2 birthdays there at the
Mhm.
Showbiz Pizza place, and this cool, figure was like, "Wait, I don't have to go to Disneyland to see like
Mhm.
cool animatronic
Yeah.
animals, like
Yep.
moving around." This thing was cool, and so this
Yeah.
was like one of the this was the lead. I had a little
Yeah.
plushie of this guy, but
Mhm.
so this is done by Justin Ishmael, who was like the creative director at Mondo, and so he did this back in 20. I'll find out in a second. It comes up. Let's see, what year was that? That issue, 20. And you're all looking at my research. Yeah, this is the behind the scenes, folks. Let's
Mhm.
see. I love that you named Showbiz. Oh God, here we go. There's a lot more. 2017, he was showing off this, and we'll take a look at that. But I love that he was like, okay, there's the character we know, and then there's the animatronics on the inside that he kind of worked into the figure.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just a fun little thing. There you go. That's Billy Bob Broccoli. There's a cool gorilla that played keyboards. Fat something, I forgot. A gold glitter tuxedo. And so this is Justin Ishmael. There's a link in there too of just his amazing work. Cool. But here he is on Adam Savage's Tested a while back, being interviewed to kind of talk about the prototype. So that's a really cool interview if you're interested. So I don't know. That's all. That was just one of those nostalgic things that I love. That again, if people didn't have the access to kind of like do the design, the prototyping, and then most importantly, get the information out to nerds like myself who would be maybe even like interested in buying it, like these things would never get made, right? You wouldn't see Hasbro going like, oh, remember that old pizza place that we used to like? Let's make toys of that.
Yeah.
But that's where we're at now. And I love that. Yeah, man, I'm just super excited that these things exist. The level of detail and like just fantastic in this little figure.
That's cool.
Anyway, I love what's going on in the fur here. I love what's going on with the fur on your figures too. Yeah. Okay. Fanigan. I mentioned this to you before we started. Fanigan, who I've shown here quite a bit because I am a Micronauts fan from when I was a kid. So I asked you behind this before we started, like, hey, Morphonauts, Micronauts. You want to share like the connection or lack thereof there?
Yeah, so it's like I was telling you, I had no idea. Like I was born a little bit after that era. I was like 81. I feel like those were in the like 70s, but the name, since it was so similar, I'd go to like toy shows or whatever, and they'd be like, "Oh, are these like Micronauts?" And I was like, "What the hell are Micronauts?" I had no, so I had to like start doing my research and finding out like what these toys were, and but I feel like there was like at one point, people were like, oh, these are a lot like Micronauts, because my original Morphonauts had like a magnetic function to them, and that was actually the way I created that was. It was actually just because I didn't know how to do articulation when I first started making action figures. Like it was, sometime in like 2010, and I was like, oh, how can I make like a joint where I don't have to like get a caliper out and figure it out. And I didn't even have like a resin printer. I had one of the FDM like MakerBot. It was a piece of crap. Anyway, so I just was testing out some magnets, and they like made these awesome connections. I was like, oh, this is sweet. And so I actually went and got a patent for like the way I did the magnets and went down that whole route. And then, I started learning a little bit more about Micronauts, but they don't really have anything to do with each other. And
cool. But, it's hilarious because you're when I first saw the magnet thing, I was like, oh, that's totally Baron Karza was the name of the character that was totally like his joints were all just by magnets. You took them apart. I used to have fun with that, and you could like connect them to like a horse that he had to kind of create like an instant centaur. Here's that Baron Karza real quick, and of course the links don't work. Anyway, you'll have to trust me. It was cool. But here's Fanigan, who's like really into those toys. I'm a little bit of a broken record, but this is like the roots of both O-ring figures. Like these were, from my understanding, the first O-ring figures were Micronauts, and they are actually originally from the Microman line by Takara Tomy in Japan, and were licensed by Mego to bring here to the United States. And they were part of that toy line back there that actually some of the Transformers came from. So like Megatron came from this line. There was like a lot of those early toys. There were like the vehicles that transformed into robots. That's a Diaclone. And then there were these objects from our scale, like a cassette recorder or a gun or a microscope. And those came from this line originally, the original line. Anyway, he's been on this mission to like, recreate some of these figures. These are his O-ring figures. Super talented. It's him and his son. I kind of actually just talked about him last week as well. But there's a reason why I'm bringing him up again this week, is because he these are cool, man. These are like 4-inch ones because the original ones were smaller.
Okay.
But he did this prototype prior to like looking at the O-ring. He was trying to do 6-inch. And so I actually unboxed this on Oz's channel the other day. I got he sent me one, which is awesome.
That's cool.
This thing, man, I was having so much fun yesterday while we were kind of on the live stream. I was just sort of here like chilling and playing with this toy. Unfortunately, one of his antennas didn't quite make it in transport. But again, a resin printer, you know, to your point earlier, what's going to happen in 5-10 years when we can print some different materials that could work a little bit more flexible, right? And it's just it's also cool to me as sort of like a fan, not of just toys and certain toy lines or properties, but I'm a fan of toys, right? And toy technology and sort of seeing how people figure out.
It's definitely like its own art form. And that's where I said, I don't feel like I'm like your traditional, like a collector. I feel like I'm an artist, and like, so I'll get a toy, and I've just got my desk filled with them. And I'm like messing with them. And I like look at it as the art of engineering mixed with proportions and the sculpt and all of that. It's all like one big art form. Yeah, that's cool.
I'm the same way in terms of my collecting habits. While I love this stuff, I always kind of like I'm both in love with the actual toys and properties, but I'm in love with the art of it, and just sort of seeing how it constantly progresses. Which is why so much of like what I do here on the news is just like, hey, check out these creators, check out what's happening. Because I just like I'm all about just being excited about these things. So fan again. This is cool. He'll be featuring in one of my unboxing videos soon, but also the shorts. You know, it's totally a prototype. It's something that, you know, he's working on, a sort of like a passion project with him and his son. And it's really cool to kind of see this character, which I never had a figure of. It was one of these, it was a Marvel created character fit into the Micronauts line. Dope figure. Man, I know, like, there's just so much. Like, this is what I was saying about in my best of 2023 video last week or so when that came out, was like how much of the figures from 2023 were from companies that just didn't exist the year before, right? Last year was actually the first time we had Animal Warriors of the Kingdom figures in hand. It was more of like, you know, being produced or whatever. Maestro Union, like, spoiler alert, one of their figures was my best figure of the year, their Blade Master Wang. And it's like these companies are just popping up everywhere, including like more here. So here's a couple more lines, like Doomboy Studios, which like there's this you know character here, but just to kind of, you can see again, I'm in love with the movement, man. When people like when I see these videos, I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on? How do they do that? And what joints are they looking at?
That's cool.
I dig the sculpt. There's a little bit of a illustrated kind of vibe. It reminds me some of the like the NECA turtles that are based on the comics, the Mirage stuff. There's the cat for that Animal Warriors of the Kingdom combat creatures vibe. And dude's toes over here. Anyway, I don't know a whole lot, but these are, I'm more than willing to kind of, you know, get some eyeballs on it. There is a blank figure, which is kind of cool. You know, like, unfortunately, getting women figures sometimes is like, it takes a while, right? Some lines will take a while before they get to it, or you know, some straight up creators will say like, they don't sell, so we don't make them. So that's cool. I don't know much about it. Was this at all on your radar, or?
No, I had no idea, but that's definitely, I'll have to go like follow him and check that out. That's cool.
Same. Oh, thank you. Toy Connections breaking down the science. Glad I got that right. So in addition to Doom Boy, man, like seriously, like it just seems like brutal. There's toy companies popping everywhere. Brutal Realm. And again, I'm sure that's gotta hit you in a different way too. Like, it's like, oh my God, more competition. And I get that piece, but like, again, I feel like it ratchets up the sort of quality and different types of things. Brutal
Yeah, I think so. That's
Realm.
kind
Is
of
this on your
that's
radar?
how I. I've seen these guys. They reached out to me like during. I didn't know about them until my Kickstarter, and they I can't remember how they reached out to me and said something, but yeah, I think they're coming up with a Kickstarter pretty soon, and looks like they've got like a bigger like a kind of a
Super
muscular,
bulky.
yeah, bulky looking
Mm-hmm.
guy, which is
Mm-hmm.
cool. And yeah, I think it just the more
Get
things
that.
people do and just taking it up the notch and gives you more options. You don't need to get like every single figure of every line, unless if you want to. But if you're like, oh, this I could customize this into something else, like it's totally cool.
Yeah, like I love these. I was so excited when I first saw the concept art come in with these, and I'll show you those in a little bit. But just seeing where the cuts are at and what people are trying to do. I don't know if this is a butterfly that I'm looking at or if that's a
That's
rotary. Like, I'm not totally
I
sure
think
what's going
it's
on there.
yeah. I think it's a butterfly. Yeah, I
Okay.
think it could. Yeah.
And they've got the way they're kind of like trying to finish up the elbows and high
Mm-hmm.
joints. Like, look at this sort of like
Mm-hmm.
double joint. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
there's that. And then there is, again, more of the sort of buck and posing it up and
Mm-hmm.
love it. Yeah, there it
Yeah.
is. Yep. The butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then here is sort of the concept. So like just the idea of it, it's definitely like a more of like a high fantasy, but like drawing from real world,
Mm-hmm.
different cultures and histories,
Yeah.
historical warriors and soldiers, right? You've got your sort of Germanic barbarian, you've got your
Mm-hmm.
sort of Sumerian, Mesopotamian, Uruk kind of thing going on. You've got stuff from the continent of Africa in particular. I'm trying to remember. It was a Yoruba warrior, and of course, you've got the bad guys, the army builder. Oh no, this is the General Grimskull. Like, I'm all about it. I could
Mm-hmm.
definitely fit some of these guys,
Yeah.
and you're gonna give me an owl.
It's
Cool
cool.
stuff,
Yeah.
and you're gonna get, cool like Mongol looking warriors that can maybe go to toe with some combat creatures, right? Some
Yeah,
giant
for
bears
sure.
and sharks
Yeah,
and
totally.
okay.
I love it.
How about these? Familiar with these? Savage Crucible.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Those are. I remember I was actually doing a similar joint system to them, like when I was testing out my the combat creatures. I was thinking of, and then they came on the scene when I was doing some custom figures, and I did like a very similar elbow joint. I think mine did something different, but
Okay.
in the end I didn't go that route. But yeah, theirs have definitely a cool look to them.
The word is that these are going to come out in the next couple of months, at least the first wave. The first wave being these lizard Lemurians, and then
Mm-hmm.
wave two. It says here, wave one ETA Q1 of 2024. Again, I said it earlier, worth the wait for me. I
Mm-hmm.
love what I'm seeing. I love where they're going. And I love the variety of these, like all the different species and,
Mm-hmm.
character types. Just seeing
Mm-hmm.
that thing move, man. Oh, that
Yeah.
looks like a fun time to me. And
Yeah.
the paints on these, some of my favorite like artists in the sort of, they paint all sorts of figures, but I learned about them through that sort of little cottage industry I was telling you about, of customizers like Nikki
Mm-hmm.
Nicole, whose
Okay.
paint work that I loved. It's like working on
Mm-hmm.
this line now, and it's just a fascinating time to be a
Yeah.
toy collector, and I think to be a creative,
Mm-hmm.
interested in toys.
Yep.
Um, they also did a this figure which
Frank
I just
Frazetta.
unboxed. That Dark Wolf I just
That's cool.
unboxed that last night on Oz's Clubhouse channel, or
Nice.
live stream. But so Savage Crucible also has an officially licensed Frazetta figure, and that's the warrior with ball and chain.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're kind of like putting them side by side. This will be in the wave 2. I'm like super excited to get this toy. Look at
That's cool.
the poses, and very much like the attitude, like the emotion of the poses that are conveyed there too, that I love, which is very much
Mm-hmm.
a Frazetta thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
And then this is one of the figs that I actually didn't back, but after seeing some of these pictures, it's like, I know I'm probably going to circle back.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. All right. So in addition to kind of like looking at toys, I also look at like art and just a ton of great artists out there. This is just, I know I'm not going to give them the time that they need, but Cooler Creations put out this poster, Godzilla right now. Adam Hastings is the name of the artist. Is definitely getting all sorts of focus and attention because of -1, because of Monarch, Legacy of Monsters, that's on Apple TV, and then the new kind of Godzilla Kong movie coming out. It's kind of a good time to be a kaiju fan. And my kids, this is one of those things where it's like, yeah, Godzilla as a concept just works, man. My 10-year-old and 12-year-old are like, no problem getting into this idea. So this is just more of like a pitch, like there's an animated concept of what maybe Godzilla could look like, which reminds me, of like a modern version of that cartoon that we had, but better, in my opinion. We had one in the late 70s or 80s. Cool stuff. Did you draw much before you got into 3D?
Yeah. I mean, I always thought, before 3D was a thing, like I was a total like 2D artist, and I got into, like, I went to college for like graphic design, and like, but the first classes I was doing is like typography, and then I saw someone like as a freshman, I saw someone like modeling like a figure, and I was like, okay, screw graphic design, I'm doing that.
Can I do that?
Like I didn't, I was like, I just went into that and like haven't looked back. I was like, that's what I was made to do, make like sculpt stuff. And
you can keep your ascenders and descenders and serifs.
Exactly.
I want to make totally.
Oh yeah, exactly. So and that's, I love it. It's just, it's all sculpting now. And I do really rough sketches, and if I do, it's like on my phone with like a little stylus, and then I just work so much faster in 3D. Like I just get something enough to give me a vision, and you'd probably look at my sketches now and be like, you don't draw, because I'm just like, it's just enough for me to like visualize, and then I can go and do it in 3D, like just super fast.
That's cool, man. And I love looking at artists and getting their attention. And this one I'll just do real quick, but love Dave Bowie, love Peanuts. And there was someone, I saw this pop up on my feed. I was like, oh, I want to share that. It was his birthday a couple of days ago. But it was kind of cool to see. Yeah, man. Peanuts, Peanuts, David Bowie,
That's
all
fun.
the different, man, that guy was like, understood the art too, right? I mean, he was an action figure himself, right? So many variants and options.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's shift to custom. So again, we're seeing more and more just like people taking their toys and wanting maybe a little something different, a little something more. This is based on the this Hawkman with some other parts, and so here we have. He goes by Toupee Dupree, and just Ray is the name. I don't know him at all, but I'm kind of looking at what he did with both paint and sculpt. Like there are some Mythic Legions pieces here. Like it looks like some pieces from some Mezco chainmail, I'm thinking. Made some alt heads for different versions of Hawkman that we've seen in the comics. Some Mythic Legions spear and some armor gauntlets with McFarlane body and wings. So it's cool, man. People like yourself are like, I'm gonna build a figure from the ground up. Other people are taking the old tradition of like scratch building, right? And just kit bashing, and the paint on this, cool. Beautiful.
Yep. Yeah. So, I love it. I love doing this, the customs and helping people out with customs and stuff like that. It's fun. It's just, it gives everyone like a little piece of the pie to be able to create what they want,
Those wings are gorgeous. So are yours, by the way. But yeah, we'll just zoom through. My name comes from the whole Lego brick building thing. I actually haven't featured much Lego here, so this is kind of a first. I wanted to feature a mock, which in Lego speak is not mint on card, but it's my own creation. But something taking like the old Naboo Starfighter and kind of like freaking it out a little bit. And then this is Alex Simeon 9. There are places that will sell you the instructions as well. And then you go on like Bricklink to try and source the parts if you don't have them. But I mean, there's all just we're in a different age, man. Like where people love their toys, but then they want to
Yeah.
contribute and make more. And
Well,
I'm here for it.
yeah, it's like a creative out, you know. That's definitely, I feel like there's like a therapy in that with just being creative. And I do it every day. And I, even if I wasn't doing it for work, I would just be doing it for fun. So yeah, and I think, you know, people, if they can't draw, they can use this medium to create, just using other pieces. And, you know, they might be not be skilled with a pencil, but they can go and create some of the coolest looking figures or sculptures,
Absolutely.
you know. Yeah.
Man, I could spend days just trying to customize like these, like create a little character from all the parts library. It's not that different, it's just a smaller scale. And I know you have some experience with Lego scale minifigs. It is a whole other medium. This don't got to spend too much time, but Zelu 1984 from the old Batman and Robin films, not one of my favorite Batman films, but there were two characters in there that never got toys. And so I love that he sort of sculpted what action figures could look like. These are just statues, no articulation, but just the character design, the vibe, the emotion of oh gosh, Drew Barrymore, and I don't even remember the name of the actor who played. So it's Sugar and Spice, and then you see the what's his name? What was that? Oh god, whatever, don't matter. Two-Face. Yeah, but I'm trying to remember the actor.
Was it Tommy Lee Jones?
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones. Just so much like attitude in these sketches, right? Or these designs that, like, I love it.
Yeah, it's cool.
So much personality. And then I think this might be our last custom. Medosa Customs. Mario does these amazing things. And this was actually, I think, the one Masterverse figure that made my true top 10 list. And it's a good figure that really had no, like, this design came from the attempt to reboot He-Man in the New Adventures. And it was just like something that, like, a lot of fans were like, wait, what is going on? So this figure alone didn't have any business being as good as it was. It's a really solid figure. But then here's like customizers being like, no, I need a new cape, need to paint some of that stuff and just like give it some metallic touches. None of this was painted on the actual figure. And I'm trying to get more into it this year. And this is absolutely just like me collecting ideas on what to do, you know. Beautiful stuff. Just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so I usually will end the show with a sort of that's what's up section and focus on a person's work. And I think I just want to talk about your stuff today. I usually will feature one thing and then the guest co-host, but let's take a little bit of time to talk, because we know Combat Creatures, that Kickstarter ended in December.
Yep.
And
December
then
8th,
now you're in the process of, sorry?
Oh yeah, December 8th. I was just agreeing with you. Yeah.
The beginning of the month. And then you folks who've backed were asked a couple days ago to fill out their backer kits to say specifically which characters do you want. But I want to go back a little, because that wasn't your first attempt at a Kickstarter. What are we looking at here? The actual Morphonauts.
This was the actual Morphonauts, and this was the magnetic joints, and they all going back looking at the old school stuff. So this just basically shows everything can mix and match and is with magnets. And it had like it was like the base idea was like robots mixed with humans mixed with like insects, and kind of had a whole story. And I had like a mech like that could transform into other figures too. So
hey, it's you.
Hey, I've got hair.
Okay.
So this was actually going to be the wave 2. So I made a wave 1, and I didn't use crowdfunding. I just basically did that on my own and figured out the whole process of making figures, and like sold through all them all. I might have like a box left of that wave 1.
That's
and then
awesome.
I changed up the articulation, and I still kept them that 4-inch scale. And this kind of shows the magnets that were used inside them. Yeah, and so that was just, it was kind of like the 80s gimmick kind of thing. It was just this cool way to customize your figures. And back then I was kind of going for more like a kid's toy, kind of like we were talking. I didn't
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
didn't fully know about the like the collector community. I
Yeah.
didn't know that that was like a big thing. And so if I did, I probably would have done things a lot different. But yeah,
I remember
these were
hearing you
more.
talk about this on the Toy Amigos, and
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool to kind of hear you talk through that,
Hmm.
and yeah, just kind of the way you came into it and designed it.
Hmm.
It's a really cool toy, and
Yeah.
like when you say like, oh, I was thinking about kids. I mean, if I had this as a kid, look at that, I would have been
Yeah.
all about it, man. Just because,
Hmm.
again,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was intended this way, but you're fighting, and all of a sudden, uh-oh, battle damage. Oh, the
Hmm.
arm fell
I
off.
know.
Like
Yep.
there's just so much fun, and you can see it. I'm sure would like kids grab this or like, wait, what is exactly that, right?
Hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
these are
It's
great.
funny seeing my daughter when she's like so little. That takes me back a little bit. That's funny.
These are
But
great, man.
yeah, it's
So
fun.
that from there, you took that idea and then you started exploring articulation, something. Oh, actually,
Hmm.
before that, I do want to share that, like, yeah, you had people reviewing it. So Toy Bro has his
Hmm.
awesome review of it, and it was really cool to kind of hear him talk through these old figures of yours, and just get his
Hmm.
take on it. Really cool and cool
Hmm.
designs, man. These are all
Yeah.
your designs, yeah.
Yeah. They were my old school designs. The master plan was like I updated my articulation, made everything 6 inches, and I actually
Hmm.
made all of these figures. I've like redesigned them, and they're like so cool. Now I'm like, I need to like launch them, and like I'll launch them, and they'll all be compatible
Hmm.
with combat creatures. So I redesigned my own like articulation system, and it's designed to be able to kind of do the same thing, but without the magnets because it's more geared towards collectors. So yeah, all these figures I like redesigned into like a 6 inch version using this updated articulation, and they look like insane now. Like I'm looking back at these old like kind of kid version, and I'm like, man,
Hmm.
the new ones look like something off of like some crazy like cyberpunk movie or something.
Yeah,
It's
these are
funny.
wild. These designs are so cool, and there is that, again, Lego guy here. Like the old Bionicle, like
Hmm.
Hero Factory, they call it. But just there's something satisfying about getting pieces and just
Hmm.
mixing and combining.
Yeah.
And yeah, people. I
And
don't know if you saw that. I was highlighting some of the things, like folks are like, yeah, this is super fun.
yeah,
Um,
the fun thing, or not the fun thing, it was the opposite. It was the hard thing about selling the Morphonauts was they were like really cool in hand. Like I had to go to toy shows, like a billion different
yeah.
toy shows, and had to like let people like actually handle them because
Yep.
um it definitely was like it's not for collectors, and kids aren't going and like getting their credit card out and buying them. So it was like I had to get them into like the smaller toy shops, the mom and pop
Yep.
shops, and I did
Bring
really
them to
well with
people.
those. Yeah, and as soon as they play with them, like as soon as like if I went to like a Christmas show, I would like kill it at those because like people would come with their kids and they'd be like, it'd be this, or there'd be like, a Captain America or something. They'd be like, no, I was just playing with that magnet toy. I want that. And so,
Nice.
yeah, those kinds of shows I do really well. But yeah, other than that, it was kind of hard
No,
figuring
man,
that
I think
whole
you've got
thing out.
something, and I wouldn't necessarily like. I don't know. It's really unique. It's super fun. But and there's still the articulation there, as we saw. It's just you got this like mix and match piece. I don't
Hmm.
know. Kind of interesting. But then
Hmm.
you also do some other things, and this is actually kind of a figure review
Hmm.
by Dave Juicebox, who I didn't know until I was like looking for these. But so you do some of these kind of like commission things that look
Hmm.
similar to other toys. You want to talk a little bit about? And these are little guys.
Yeah, these are
What?
tiny. These are like 2.5 inches. And this was
Hmm.
kind of my own little like R&D for combat creatures. So after Morphonauts, I like kind of went back to the drawing board, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like, just figure out what I want to do. Wait, did I say that right? After that, the failed Morphonauts Kickstarter, I went back to the drawing board. I was
They
like,
failed for wave two.
Wave 2, yeah.
Yep.
And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, what do I want to do? And I got a resin printer, and I was just like testing stuff out, and I went to a smaller scale, and I was just looking at everything. And it started out as like a mega constructs figure, like
Oh,
2 inches.
sure.
but they looked like, to me, they're like too squatty. And so it started at that. And then I was like, oh, I got to lengthen the legs. Oh, I got to do this. And I was like, and then people would be like, oh, you need a bicep swivel. And so these little figures were just my own little R&D. And I just sell them or whatever. And people be like, oh, can you make this? And I'd be like, okay, there you go, and sell that. And it just became my own little research and development for combat creatures of like what works in 3D printed, but also what could I
Gotcha.
use in factory. And so it was like a kill two birds with one stone. I was figuring out what I wanted to do next. And then I was like, okay, should I do morphonauts, like the robots, humans, crab stuff in this, or should I do
Hmm.
something else? And then I don't know, somewhere in the last couple of years, I was like, oh, I think I actually just made some like a like I think I did like a fox, like a battle beast figure, and then I did like
Ah, I
yeah, I
see
did like a
the trajectory.
yeah, I did like a fox, an alligator, and a shark, and I think a wolverine that looked like kind of like like Wolverine. And anyway, those were, I was looking at what sold best, and those were like doing really well. And so I was like, okay, like took it to the next level. I started selling like 4-inch version, and like to sell 6-inch version of 3D printed, it's like it takes a lot of resin. It's like I don't know if it's hitting that. Is it worth it for people?
Yeah,
Because I
yeah,
have to
yeah.
sell it. And even these little ones, like these are like we were talking about mythic legions, like people will go and sell like a head for, I don't know, you probably know better than me, like $15,
Yeah.
where I'll sell a fully articulated figure for $15. So it's like,
Hmm. Hmm.
and it's probably takes the same amount of work for me to
Oh,
do a head,
probably.
for them to do a head. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, I was just saying, like to model a
Just
head
for the
and then
head.
model,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's just the
yeah,
same. So it's like
yeah.
I have to do like quadruple, I have to do articulation, a full body, a
You had to
somewhat, and
reassess the two and a
yeah, so
half
I'm
inch
probably doing
figure.
like I was like probably doing that the not smart way, but at the same time to do commissions of just like heads like over and over, I was doing stuff like that, and it's just like the challenge. Like I don't know, I like love putting together a full figure for someone, or just an unassembled and be like, hey, here you go, like have fun with it, and
Yep.
like I love that part of it, and then it got me to the point of doing combat creatures, making my own figure line. So it's cool.
Earlier we were talking about Fanigan's toys, so he is very familiar with your work, and he jumped in and wanted to let you know that his sons love the Halo and Xenomorph that he got him
Oh,
from you.
nice.
Uh,
Cool.
so loves
Thank
your
you.
work, and was pointing out when we were talking about the magnet figures that yeah, doing magnet figs is not as easy as one might think. So hats off to you.
Thanks. You
This is
lose
a
a lot
Doom.
of skin, like you with like trying to super glue it, and then super glue sticks to your skin. So, yeah.
So if you got some of those figures, there may be blood in that. No.
Man.
And then
No, the
so
old prototypes. So they're 10 years old.
you were earlier referencing getting some of your prototypes to reviewers, and this is one
Oh
of
yeah.
my favorite reviewers, The
Oh yeah.
Amazing. He got his hands on
Oh
this
yeah.
stuff.
There you
Yeah,
go.
this is great and good move in reaching out to him. How did you all make
Oh
that
man.
connection?
Like I actually didn't really know too much about him.
Okay,
Someone just randomly sent me a list of a whole bunch of toy reviewers, and I
good,
knew a
good,
few,
good.
and they're like, hey, reach out to this guy, and I was like, okay, whatever. And yeah, I didn't know D Amazing, but he did such an odd, like his pictures of just the gray figures were like insane. And then he did like the one of the most like thorough reviews of the figures, and showed like everything about it. I was like, man, this was awesome. Like, especially since he didn't know me, and it's just like, yeah, he was super cool and did such a cool review on it. I was super grateful for him.
Yeah, that's great. Uh, and yeah, and of course he does his like standard like look at him and kind of talks about the articulation and how the system works with taking pieces off and on, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool to see him take this prototype through its paces, especially
Mm-hmm.
the way he kind of like poses his figures. I really
Yeah.
appreciate what he
Oh
does.
yeah. Yeah.
And then the photos at the end, like as you said, he sort of always ends with the photos, and yeah, this got me excited, especially this. I love this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really, he takes
Yeah.
this and kind of shows how these might fit in with your other toys.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I think he's got a. I just missed it. Where's that? There's my AWOC figure,
There you go.
Blight. but yeah, it's really cool. And then he ends with the photos at the end, and so cool, man.
Yeah, like look, yeah. I was like, just for a Grace like statue looking figure, I was like, man, that has some like that's telling a
So
story,
good.
you know? Yeah, it's
Yep.
awesome. He did
And that's your
insane.
work right there, man. And again,
Yeah.
it gets out of your hands and then gets in the hands of this like just talented community of people who are like just
Mm-hmm.
pushing it. And then of course the add-ons there that are nice old school homage to the
Mm-hmm.
old Battle Beast scale.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I'm looking at the weapons, and that was one of my add-ons, was to get that whole kit that you're putting out with
Oh
all the
man.
different like mix and match modular
Oh
weapons. All
dude.
of this, folks, if you didn't know.
That thing is like so. I still have like my little 5-year-old daughter. Like she came up to me today. She's like, "Daddy, do you want to make some pew pews?" Like kind of like pew pew pew, because
That's
they're
awesome.
so fun just to like mix and match, and like they're so easy, and there's like so many like thousands of different options you can do with them. They're like way fun to do.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And I think so, folks, if you want to know more about Bo and his work, check out morphonauts.com is a great place. And again, all of these are in those links. You see kind of like the URL at the bottom. It's all updated, so it's all good to go right now, whether you're live or on the replay. You can go check those out. All the links are there. But morphonauts.com, you'll get all the info both for combat creatures, kind of where they're at, and you can do some pre-ordering there, and you can go through some of their older projects. I didn't even know about the Brick Buddies. I kind of heard you talking about them over
Mm-hmm.
on Toy Migos, and was really
Mm-hmm.
interested in that as a person who was
Mm-hmm.
super into Lego.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool to kind of see these. And then there's some of
Mm-hmm.
the other ones, the what do you call it? The Storm Shadow and where is it?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah,
and
the
then you've got
ninjas.
these
Yeah.
things. And
Mm-hmm.
then you've got these two. So it's kind of cool to see these toys. And the scales of these can be shifted, right? Because I've seen
Yep.
you.
Yeah, yeah. There's like a drop down menu. You can do 2.5 inch, 3.75, and then 4. I think I added 6. Like for those, like some people might want like a 6 inch, and like I said, they're bigger, so they have to be a little bit more money. But yeah, some people like they love those bigger ones, and they're pretty solid. Like they're a solid figure. They work great. So yeah, you can check those out.
Yeah, and great sculptor here on the shell and everything. I think it's really cool, and hats off to you for like doing in this whole like new way again of approaching
Hmm.
toys and selling the toys.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this, and just to be clear, like you're saying, one of the add-ons for the backer kit and Kickstarter is a gun system of different pieces. Are
Hmm.
those compatible with
Yeah.
the guns? They are, right?
Yep, 100%. Yeah, and so I haven't even showed like much of what they work with these, but yeah, everything, all my weapon uh, parts are in one file. So if I make it, it's like just chopping up a gun, and like I'll design a gun, like I said, a quick little sketch, and I'll take that into 3D and start using the pegs and cavities to make a new gun. So yeah, it's fun.
Very cool. And I want to say that's featured. I know it was in the backer kit, but I don't know. Is there somewhere here where it shows a little bit more about that gun
Did
and the
I?
combination?
You know what? Did I? I think that's a good point. I actually have to update the Kickstarter. I forgot that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
I
need to
only
go
saw it
and
in the backer kit, and then there's the
okay.
wings as well as an
Yeah, the
add-on. So there's a
wings.
lot of
Yeah, yeah, the
just
wings
really
are
cool
cool
things.
too. Yeah,
And I
and
love that you made
the
the joints compatible with
yeah.
the arms.
Another thing I'm doing for the wings, and this like well, what's cool about doing it as a Kickstarter and like having time to perfect it, I'm actually going to make like the peg that comes out of the wings like a swappable piece. So
Mhm.
I might make it so that it could be a swappable piece with something else, like we were talking Mythic Legion. So I could keep the wings, take the little peg out, put whatever their connection is, and then you
Yep.
can use these on there. So that'll be a one thing
That's
when you're talking about
definitely
that. It's like, oh, I could do that.
something to consider. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Or even like, yeah, we could talk about all the different options all day. But man, I appreciate
Yeah.
you coming here today and sharing a little bit more about what's been going on with you in terms of Morphonauts, but also like all the history with the other folks, the Invisible Toys folks, and it's been really cool. So yeah, I remember you and I got to hang out on Mega J's, and I'm glad you were able to clear up your Sunday to do this. I know we ran a little bit past time, which is a thing that I do.
Yeah, it's all good.
So is there anything you want folks that are still here to know about, or folks on the replay that they should know about to look for, or anything?
Yeah, probably just the backer kit. If you missed out on the Kickstarter because it was during the holidays, I know that was a hard time. If you want to jump on the backer kit, you can still get your figures, and
What's the best place to access the backer kit?
Probably there's links all over my social, but I think if you go on Instagram, I think it's on my link tree. It should be on my website on the front page there. If not, I'll add the links.
And again, in the links, if you use the QR code that's on the bottom, it'll take you to the links for today. Those are all updated. And let me actually show you what that all looks like. And so for today's show, you can scroll down to the end, and there's all the links here, and you can check out the IG link you're saying, and there you go. Here is that combination system we're talking about. Anything, and the links to here in the link tree, you can do all that for the backer kit and stuff. So check it out, folks. Bo Hacking is doing some amazing stuff with Morphonauts. I hope people were super duper entertained by and informed, actually, just because that's what I like to do. I'm a toy fan, but I'm also like a fan of like the art behind it and the creators. So check it out. Lots of great stuff going on, and I appreciate you all for joining us today. Definitely check out those links. Follow Bo, and then yeah. Any final words for the folks, Bo?
No, thanks for coming and watching, and thanks for the support. You guys are awesome.
Right on. Okay, folks. Well, that'll be it for us. I hope everybody has a great MLK Day if you're here in the States. I always say peace and power, and a lot of that comes from the legacy of Dr. King. That's just my little thing to share with you. So appreciate you all. Have a great week. Let's go ahead and there's lots of great shows. There's GDL. There's Hella Dope. There's Just Shelve It. So continue your toy evening. All right, folks. Have a great week.